Let me introduce myself. My name is Clint Bartlett, and I just recently started a YouTube channel called The Contact. Let me start off by talking about encounters that I had with UFOs, or a new term being put out there, UAPs. And also, I'm going to go into detail about my most recent experiences doing CE5 and contact work. To start off, I would say that it all started with me when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I was up north with my family, and I was playing with my cousin out in the woods. At the time, we weren't really in the woods. We were near the woods, kind of in an open area, and I would say pretty far away from where our parents were. And while we were playing, we noticed in the field something appear out of nowhere, which looked like a light in the shape of a cross, or what some people might describe as something that was trans-dimensional. It kind of looked similar to some of the objects that are shown in Dr. Stephen Greer's work, Unacknowledged and Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind. So when we witnessed this object appear, if I'm not mistaken, I believe my cousin ran back to the house where our family was, and I sat there and watched this object, and for whatever reason I lost track of time. I don't actually recall exactly what happened after that, and next thing I know, I was basically walking towards the house and joining back up with my family. So I would say that there was a lost amount of time there, and I can't recall it. Although this was several years ago, I'm now almost 38 years old, and this was when I was 7 or 8. So it's pretty vague. The next encounter I had was when I was at my friend's house, who lived right up the street from where I lived. She and I would, play together often, and I was headed home after we were done spending time together. And while I was passing by one of our neighbors' houses, for whatever reason, I looked up into the sky, and I seen what looked like a boomerang-looking craft, similar to the ones which everybody would probably, who is watching this video, would recall as the Phoenix Lights. It looked like a boomerang shape, and it had lights on the bottom, round lights. Maybe like, 6 lights. It was fully materialized, made no sound, between like a gunmetal gray or black. I think it was darker in color. Anyways, even though it made no sound, it wasn't moving either at the time, and I would say that it was probably no more than 500 feet in the air, and I was actually pretty scared at the time. I don't know what I was looking at, and I was pretty frightened at the time. So I essentially just ran home from there and try to put it out of my mind. So fast forward to about 11 or 12 years old, and me, my mom, and dad were moving out to the farm. We were living in the city at the time, and um, my great grandma had just recently passed away, and we decided to pack up and move out to the farm um, because my dad inherited the farm and wanted to sort of take it over. Anyways, yeah, we moved out there, and my next encounter was again when I was probably around 11 or 12 years old. This was right around maybe late November. There wasn't really snow on the ground yet, and for all of those who are wondering where these events were happening, my home state is Wisconsin. In fact, I just recently moved back here from Florida. So it was about the end of November. We had the Christmas tree up and everything else, decorations, and all of a sudden I looked out in the neighbor's field across the road, and I seen 4 glowing orbs that were probably I would say 3 or 4 feet in diameter. They were probably 10 feet off the ground. There wasn't any snow on the ground, and this was either at dusk or at night, and they were moving around each other rapidly. I'm not really entirely sure if it was any sort of pattern or what have you. However, I sat there looking at these objects for probably 10 or 15 minutes. I was just awestruck by it and and interested, if nothing else. I didn't feel any fear or anything like that at the time. And I'm not sure why. Maybe because it was so far out and I was just looking out the window. It was more of a curiosity. So I watched it for 10 or 15 minutes and then walked away. And that was it with that encounter. The next encounter probably happened either the same year or within a year or two, around the same age, maybe 12 or 13, I would say. And I was upstairs in my bedroom and laying down, and I was still awake for whatever reason. Usually I would be asleep at this time. It was either like 11 or 12 midnight at night, and my mom had gone to bed. She typically would, watch television until late, like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I knew she had gone to bed because the lights were out downstairs, and so all of a sudden there was my bed essentially was up against the wall, and that wall was a ledge where you could peer over it, and the staircase going downstairs from the upstairs was leading down, so you could essentially look over this wall and look down. So it wasn't like a full wall that my bed was up against. It was maybe like 3 or 4 feet high, and you could just lean over it and look at the stairs going downstairs into the living room. So I seen a light on, and I thought, well, that's weird. I thought my mom had gone to bed, and it started getting brighter in behind me on the staircase. So I'm like, that's interesting. So I look over this edge, looking at the staircase, and around the corner comes this 3-foot diameter ball of light. It's very bizarre. And, it slowly traverses, it's not touching the stairs or anything. It's maybe like 6 inches or a foot off the ground, and it comes up the stairs. And at this point, I'm like, oh, geez, I'd freak out a little bit and go back under my covers on my bed, you know, and it's obviously coming up the stairs. But I was kind of curious at the same time too. I wasn't completely afraid. Where I just had the covers over my head. I was kind of peeking, looking to see what would happen. And this ball of light comes around the corner, and maybe like it was only 3 or 4 feet away from my bed. Again, 6 inches to a foot off the ground, and I'm looking at it, and it's slowly going. It just keeps going around the corner into the next bedroom, and then disappears. And that was that encounter, and that was probably actually the closest that I've ever gotten to any of these UFO/UAPs. I can't say they've gotten any closer than that since then. So this is all happening while my family and I are living out on the farm. The next encounter was probably when I was 15 or 16. So again, fast forward to a few years later. I was 15, 16 years old, and my dad was tilling or plowing the soil in the northern field. So we were doing some farm work, and really it was him doing it. He was driving the tractor, and I was just sitting next to him on the tractor, spending some time with my old man, talking to him, and all of a sudden, maybe 1,000 feet up in the air, several miles out. So whatever this was that we saw had to have been pretty big. We saw a shiny metallic object, and I kind of elbow my dad. I'm like, hey, check that out. Do you see that up there? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, do you think that is what I think it is? And he's like, I don't know what we're looking at there. He didn't really want nothing to do with it. He was just kind of a simple man, and not to be negative towards him, or anything like that. But he didn't really, he didn't care too much about this sort of thing. But we're looking at it, for maybe 30 seconds, and we're just, awestruck. And then all of a sudden, boop, it just disappears. It was gone. And we look at each other and our jaws drop, So that was interesting. And so then nothing really happened for quite a few years later. Probably, let's see, that was 15, 16 years old. The next encounter happened with, is with a buddy of mine and I, and it's kind of funny because we were talking about UFOs and these sort of things that struck our curiosity. I told him about all these past objects that I seen. And, it got him curious and kind of wondering what they were too. And so I was probably 24, 25 years old. My friend was a little bit older than I was, and he was actually coming to pick me up from my brother's place. And we're gonna head back to his place. And it was pretty chilly out. It's probably late October. Again, this was Wisconsin. This is still in Wisconsin. And This wasn't anywhere near the farm, the previous encounters. Um, so we're traveling along, and I noticed this light in the sky over this lake, and it was making all kinds of weird movements, and uh, and I caught it out of the corner of my eye above this lake, and I'm like pull over. So we pulled over, and up to this point he wanted he was kind of looking for some proof too as to seeing something, because he never saw anything up to this point, and we were constantly talking about it and interested. And so we pulled over, and this object was probably no more than 100 feet in the middle of this small lake above the lake. And it was just sitting there hanging out. It wasn't moving very much. But the weird thing about it was I never seen anything like this before. I would describe it as some sort of UAP, possibly transdimensional. And it looked like it was kind of different colors, kind of bubbling in and out of each other. That's the only way that I can describe it. And well, we probably watched it for 20 or 30 minutes, and we were awestruck again. It's too bad because that was pretty much before the advent of cameras on cell phones, really before everybody had a camera and could take a video. Otherwise, it would have been an excellent video. Anyways, so we kind of went back and forth for that 20 or 30 minutes discussing what it could possibly be, and of course we both lacked a lot of information at this point. And just kind of starstruck by it. We got back in the vehicle and went back to his house. That was it for that encounter. So shortly after that, I moved down to Florida, and I lived down there for 7 or 8 years. And the whole time, again, fast forward, I didn't see anything in particular looking in the sky. I didn't really make much of an effort either. Although the other encounters that I had, I wasn't really making any effort. I didn't know about initiating contact or any of the CE5 protocols or nothing like that before a year ago, really. So I was living in Florida, and the pandemic struck, and my girlfriend and I decided to move up north, where I'm from, and up in Wisconsin, and we decided to move up here and look for another place. But before she had moved up here, I was laid off. Okay, let me back up. Yeah, so before we moved up here, I ended up getting laid off because of the pandemic. So I had extra time on my hands, and I decided to kind of sort of nonchalantly get back into the UFO thing. And so I ended up finding some of Dr. Stephen Greer's work, and I looked at his the website and read a few things, and I thought, well, that's really interesting. And I noticed he had documentaries out, and so I watched the documentary Unacknowledged, and I was like, whoa, that completely blew my mind. And I'm like, this is really interesting, and I want to know more, and I was just struck by what that film had to offer. And then I watched the video, the disclosure video in, what was it, 2001, with Greer and you know uh, some of the people that worked for the companies and the military and past CIA agents, and that that struck me even more. And but I still didn't do anything up to this point. And shortly after, and this was back in 2020, shortly after the movie Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind came out, and I watched that, and then I realized at that point that, oh my God, there's actually a way to initiate contact to whatever this phenomenon is, or civilizations from another planet, trans-dimensional entities or things, and I'm like, well, this this is wonderful. It doesn't even have to be a random encounter anymore. There's something that people can do about it. So I downloaded the app and tried it. I tried it a few times with the tones and the meditation, and something just wasn't sitting right with me. It wasn't. I didn't see anything or hear anything. I didn't see anything in the skies or nothing. It was, and I thought, well, I don't know. Maybe this is just a hoax. Maybe this isn't something that you can do. And but I wasn't really feeling it at that time either, because my